Tonight's story takes us deep into the shadows of the unknown, a place where logic fails, nature turns hostile, and every answer only raises darker questions. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It isn't a campfire tale or an urban legend. This is a real event, documented, investigated, and still completely unexplained. In the remote mountains of Siberia, a group of 7 experienced hikers set out on a routine expedition. Their leader was one of the most respected survival instructors in Russia. They were trained, prepared, confident, and yet, within a single hour, something attacked them that no one saw, no one heard, and no one has ever been able to fully explain. Violent seizures, sudden collapse, blood, terror, and one lone survivor running barefoot through the forest with something unimaginable behind her. So sit back, turn off the lights, and remember, the story you're about to hear is not just disturbing, it's still unsolved, and experts believe the same conditions could happen again to anyone at any time. Ben Rich reveals the truth. Ben Rich wasn't just another aerospace engineer. He was the legendary head of Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works division, the secretive branch responsible for some of the most advanced aircraft ever created on Earth. The SR-71 Blackbird, the F-117 Nighthawk, machines that seemed decades ahead of their time, were born under his leadership. But what really cemented Rich as a permanent figure in conspiracy lore was something he reportedly said near the end of his life, something that people still debate today. During a 1993 presentation at UCLA, Rich supposedly told the audience, "We already have the means to travel among the stars, but these technologies are locked up in black projects. It would take an act of God to ever get them out to benefit humanity." That single quote changed everything. Witnesses connected to the Disclosure Project, a network of former military officers, engineers, and government insiders, claimed they heard Rich say it directly. And ever since, the quote has become one of the most analyzed and controversial statements ever attributed to someone from the classified aerospace world. Now, the question is, why would he say that? And what exactly did he mean? Skunk Works has always been known for pushing technology far beyond what the public thinks is possible. Even the SR-71, developed in the early 1960s, could outrun missiles and fly at speeds that modern aircraft still struggle to achieve. If they could create that 60 years ago, what could they do today, or even back then, behind closed doors? Some researchers believe Rich wasn't speaking metaphorically. They think he was hinting at propulsion systems and technologies that operate outside the boundaries of physics as we currently understand them. "We already have the means to travel among the stars" implies something far more advanced than rockets or jets. It implies something closer to science fiction: warp drives, gravity manipulation, zero-point energy. And Rich wasn't the only high-ranking figure to suggest such things. Former U.S. Senator Harry Reid, who pushed for government transparency on UFO phenomena, publicly stated that Lockheed Martin may have been in possession of materials not made of this Earth. Reid tried to obtain special access to see these materials himself. Even with his senior political status, his request was denied. Think about that. A United States senator, one of the most powerful politicians in the country, was told he didn't have clearance. Reid never confirmed what the materials were. He never confirmed if they were craft fragments, engineered components, or something else entirely. But he did confirm that he believed Lockheed Martin was involved. And that only made Ben Rich's quote more chilling. If such technologies exist, devices capable of interstellar travel, why are they hidden? Who controls them? Why are they not used for energy, transportation, or medicine? What could humanity accomplish if secrets buried inside classified black projects were released? Of course, skeptics argue the quote was exaggerated or misremembered. They claim Rich enjoyed speaking poetically about technological progress. They insist he meant that future advances would eventually get us to the stars, not that we already had the capability. But if that's true, why do so many people who attended the event swear he meant the literal interpretation? And then there's the story some insiders tell, the one Rich supposedly joked about privately. "That's how we travel to the stars," he would say. "We already found a way. Anything you can imagine, we already know how to do." That line, whether true or not, fuels a question many have been asking for decades. Has humanity already broken the barrier of conventional physics and simply locked the results away? There are stories, whispers really, about recovered craft, reverse-engineered technology, propulsion systems that bend gravity instead of resisting it. Some former Skunkworks employees have hinted that their most advanced projects made public airplanes look like children's toys. But the most unsettling part is the silence. No documents, no reveals, no public proof. Just a trail of credible voices saying they have seen something extraordinary, an even larger trail of classified walls preventing anyone from looking inside. Ben Rich passed away in 1995. With him may have gone secrets that could change humanity's future forever. Whether he was hinting at a hidden breakthrough or simply speaking dramatically is still unknown. But one thing remains clear. People at the highest levels of aerospace, including the man at the top, believed the public wasn't being told everything. And if Rich's words were even half true, then somewhere deep within classified vaults sits technology that could rewrite what we think is possible and redefines humanity's place in the universe. If only someone would open the door. The megalithic structures of Mount Votovara. Mount Votovara, hidden deep within the wild forests of Karelia, Russia, is one of those places you hear about only in strange documentaries, obscure forums, or whispered travel rumors. Rising just over 1,000 feet, the mountain isn't tall, but it feels impossibly ancient, old, heavy, mysterious. When the fog rolls in around its jagged stones and twisted dead trees, the entire mountain looks like a place torn out of another world. People who visit describe the same sensation. It feels wrong and sacred at the same time. And what makes Votovara so unsettling is not just the atmosphere, it's the structures scattered all across its slopes. Dozens of enormous boulders, some weighing several tons, sit balanced perfectly on small stones. Some rest at angles that look engineered, not natural. Imagine a 5-ton rock sitting on a stone the size of a basketball, unmoving, stable, almost deliberate. Geologists say glacial activity and erosion can create balanced rocks, but even they admit, not like this, not so many in one place, not so perfect. Then there are the stone spheres, smooth, rounded rocks that look eerily similar to the mysterious stone balls in Costa Rica or the spheres in New Zealand. These types of stones are rare in nature, extremely rare. Yet Votovara has them, scattered across the terrain as if someone placed them intentionally. The mountain also has long, stair-like ridges carved into the rock, stone altars, and strange polygonal formations that echo other ancient megalithic sites around the world. But here's the thing. There is no known ancient civilization in Karelia that could have built something on this scale. No ruins, no tools, no settlements, no evidence of a culture with the manpower to move giant stones into perfectly balanced positions. So what exactly is Mount Votovara? Local legends say the mountain was once a sacred site used by ancient shamans, a place where the living could communicate with the dead, where rituals involving the spirit world were performed. They say the stones mark old portals between realms, and that the mountain itself chooses who can understand its secrets. Hikers talk about the same unsettling phenomenon: a sudden silence, birds going quiet, a feeling like the air thickens around you, as if the mountain is watching. Some even describe hearing whispers, not words, not voices, but the sense of something speaking in a language humans no longer understand. Others experience disorientation. They walk a simple trail and suddenly find themselves far from where they should be, with no memory of how they got there. It's as if the landscape folds and unfolds around them.
And then there are the lights. Visitors have reported flashes in the sky, glowing orbs drifting between boulders, and pulsing lights deep in the forests. Appearances that last seconds before vanishing completely. Scientists offer explanations: random seismic activity, swamp gas, optical illusions from the fog. But people who have seen them don't agree. The lights move with intent. They change direction. They react. They feel alive. Some researchers think the mountain may sit on a powerful geomagnetic anomaly, similar to places like the Bermuda Triangle or the Oregon Vortex, where natural forces distort perception, time, and electromagnetic fields. Others believe the mountain is an ancient impact site, a place where something massive crashed into Earth long before humans existed. And then there are the theories that push even further. Some say the megaliths are remnants of a long-lost advanced civilization, one wiped out before recorded history. The stone spheres, the precise balanced stones, the unnatural formations, they might be clues left by people we no longer remember. There is even a fringe belief that Votohara isn't a natural mountain at all, that it's the ruins of an artificial structure, something enormous, now eroded and buried under vegetation, and what we see today are the last exposed fragments of a forgotten world. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: no explanation fully fits. Every stone seems positioned, every shape seems intentional, every feature feels designed. Mount Votohara refuses to be classified, refuses to be understood. It sits alone in the wild forests of Karelia, ancient, quiet, watching, holding secrets older than any human memory. And if mountains could talk, Votohara might tell us something we're not ready to hear.
The sunken city of Cuba. Off the western coast of Cuba, nearly 650 meters beneath the waves, lies one of the most puzzling underwater mysteries of the modern era. Some call it the Atlantis of Cuba. Others believe it's evidence of a civilization lost long before recorded history. And what makes this story so bizarre is not just what was found, but how quickly the world seemed to forget it. In 2001, Canadian engineers Pauline Zalitsky and Paul Weinswag were conducting a deep-sea survey for the Cuban government. Their company specialized in using advanced sonar to find shipwrecks, mostly Spanish colonial vessels filled with centuries-old treasure. But one day, their sonar screens displayed something they had never expected to see: geometric structures, massive ones, perfect right angles, symmetrical formations, stone blocks the size of houses, not scattered randomly, but arranged like the remnants of a planned city. The images looked artificial, impossible, ancient. News outlets went wild. Headlines declared, "Atlantis found near Cuba, lost civilization discovered under the sea, a 50,000-year-old city?" Even National Geographic expressed interest. Cuban scientists wanted to investigate. Everyone expected this to become the archaeological discovery of the century. But then nothing. Media coverage evaporated. Funding disappeared. Investigations were quietly postponed. It was as if the world collectively shrugged and turned away. But Zalitsky didn't give up. Later that year, she returned with a Cuban geologist and an ROV, a remotely operated underwater vehicle equipped with cameras. The footage confirmed what sonar hinted at: giant stone blocks arranged in square patterns, structures resembling pyramids, walls made of smooth, polished stone, platforms that looked carved, not natural. Some blocks were 8 by 10 feet, too large to be the result of simple geological fractures. Others were stacked with precision. The geologist Manuel Iturralde was stunned. He said the structures lay so deep underwater that it would have taken at least 50,000 years for natural geological shifts to move them there. That meant one of two things. If they were artificial, the builders lived long before any known advanced civilization existed.
or the land on which they stood sunk into the ocean catastrophically. Both explanations rewrote history. And then came the strange connections. Ancient Mayan legends describe an island homeland that sunk into the sea long before the rise of their civilization. Some theorists believe Cuba and the Yucatan Peninsula were once connected by a land bridge. If so, the sunken city might be the last trace of a forgotten culture that vanished during the end of the last ice age. Others, more skeptical, say the formations might be natural geological formations caused by tectonics, but even they admit the symmetry is unusual, strikingly so. What puzzles people most is the silence. Why did major institutions back away? Why did funding stop? Why were follow-up missions canceled without explanation? Some think Cuba's government restricted access. Others believe outside nations discouraged the investigation to avoid rewriting historical timelines. And some suggest a darker possibility, that the site revealed something global powers weren't ready to address. Even today, very little new data exists. The site remains unexplored, forgotten, and almost buried in obscurity. But the ocean hasn't moved the structures. They're still there, massive, silent, untouched, on the ocean floor, waiting.
The strange case of the Salme ships. In 2008, construction workers on the small Estonian island of Saaremaa uncovered something strange, the outline of a ship buried under the soil. Archaeologists were called in, expecting a small find, maybe an old fishing boat, maybe a medieval wreck. They were wrong. What they found was the beginning of one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries in Northern Europe. The ship was a clinker-built Scandinavian vessel from around 700–750 AD, older than the Viking era. Inside were the remains of warriors, dozens of them. 2 years later, just meters away, a second ship was discovered. Together, they contained the remains of 41 warriors, 6 dogs, 2 trained hunting hawks, and a collection of weapons so impressive it stunned historians. Swords, shields, spears, dice and gaming pieces, decorative items reserved for nobles. This wasn't a simple burial. This was a mass grave of elite fighters far from their homeland. Isotopic testing revealed the men were Scandinavian, likely Swedish. Yet no writings, no sagas, no legends tell of a battle involving 40 warriors dying in Estonia during this era. So what happened? Some believe the group sailed across the Baltic on a raiding expedition that went horribly wrong. The wounds found on many of the skeletons confirm battle injuries, slashes, fractures, fatal blows. Others believe the mission may have been diplomatic, a meeting or negotiation that spiraled into violence. But the burial is what confuses researchers most. Ship burials were rare, sacred events in Scandinavian culture, usually reserved for high-ranking individuals. Burying 40 men this way was unheard of. Doing it on foreign soil was even stranger. Who buried them? Surviving comrades? Or local Estonians who chose to honor their fallen enemies? The presence of the hawks and dogs suggests respect, a desire to send the warriors into the afterlife properly. Everything about the burial feels intentional, ceremonial, meaningful. And yet, no record of these men exists. No saga mentions them. No Nordic poems reference such a tragic expedition. No oral tradition tells of a lost band of noble warriors who vanished across the sea. Historians believe the story was simply lost over the centuries, forgotten before it could become legend.
But some archaeologists suggest a more eerie possibility, that the warriors came to Estonia for a purpose we still don't understand. Why bring hunting hawks on a raid? Why bring dogs? Why bring gaming pieces? It feels almost like a mission, a carefully planned operation. Some speculate they were explorers pushing deeper into foreign territory than anyone realized for that era. Others believe they were escorting someone important, perhaps a figure whose identity is still hidden. But the most puzzling detail, not a single defensive structure or settlement has been found nearby, meaning the battle that killed them might have been swift, sudden, or unexpected. The Salme ships force historians to rethink Scandinavian activity centuries before the Viking Age. They revealed that Nordic warriors traveled farther, fought harder, and interacted with foreign cultures long before anyone recorded it. The ships still rest beneath the soil of Saaremaa, silent, haunting reminders that entire chapters of human history remain missing. And sometimes, the dead tell stories the living cannot.
The Lake Baikal humanoids. Lake Baikal in Siberia is the deepest and oldest freshwater lake on Earth. Many call it the Galapagos of Russia because of its unique wildlife. But Baikal also has a darker reputation, one of UFOs, strange lights, mysterious disappearances, and one of the most chilling alleged encounters ever recorded by the Russian military. In the early 1980s, the Soviet Navy used Baikal as a training site for deep-water divers. The water is brutally cold, dark, and unforgiving, a perfect place to test skills. But during one exercise in 1982, a team of divers reported something they were never trained for. At a depth of around 50 meters, they claimed to see humanoid beings swimming nearby. Not humans, not animals, something else. The beings were described as nearly 3 meters, almost 10 feet tall. Their bodies were human-shaped but elongated. Their skin appeared silver or metallic, and on their heads were helmet-like transparent domes, almost like glowing bubbles. They moved effortlessly through the frigid water, far faster and smoother than any human diver. When the team resurfaced and reported the encounter, their commander ordered them to return and capture one of the beings. 7 divers went back down, but the attempt failed instantly. As the group approached the beings, they were struck by an unseen force, described as a powerful water blast that shoved all of them upward uncontrollably. They shot toward the surface too fast, unable to stop themselves. Only 4 could fit in the decompression chamber on shore. 3 died from decompression sickness, the bends, a horrific way to go. After that, the Soviet military allegedly banned deep-water operations in that region of Baikal. Officially, nothing happened. Unofficially, something happened that terrified the command. And the strange encounters didn't end there. A fisherman named Nikolai Kureyev told him a night in the 1990s when he and his friends saw massive shapes swimming under their boat. Shapes so large they created waves strong enough to nearly flip them. They tried casting nets, but the nets tore instantly, as something unbelievably strong ripped through them. Locals have long spoken of lake spirits that pulled boats under. Stories describe creatures with human faces, bodies like seals, and tails like fish. They call them Baikal pharaohs. According to legend, villagers once captured dozens of these beings in nets, and after beating them with birch rods, the creatures vanished from the lake entirely. Of course, legends evolve, stories shift, tales stretch, but the consistency is unsettling. Humanoid beings, deep water,
immense strength, silver bodies, glowing heads. Even today, Baikal is known as a hotspot for UFO sightings. Russian pilots have seen glowing discs entering and exiting the lake. Locals report underwater lights moving at impossible speeds. Some say Baikal hides entire caverns or tunnels leading to unknown depths. Could the humanoids be an undiscovered species? Extraterrestrials? A remnant of an ancient civilization like the mythical Hyperborea? No one knows. The Russian government has never confirmed or denied anything. But 3 divers died after an encounter with something powerful and something intelligent. Whatever lives in Lake Baikal, it does not want to be found.
The mystery of Untersberg Mountain. Rising along the border of Germany and Austria, Untersberg Mountain looks peaceful, a postcard landscape with forests, cliffs, and panoramic views. Tourists hike its trails, take pictures, enjoy the scenery. But beneath its beauty lies one of the strangest mountains in Europe, a place filled with legends of time anomalies, portals, disappearances, and ancient beings asleep inside the stone. Locals call Untersberg the Time Mountain, and not just because of its long history, but because people claim time behaves differently here. For centuries, hikers have disappeared on Untersberg, only to reappear days or weeks later with no memory of what happened. In some cases, their watches show hours have passed, even though they insist only minutes went by. Others report losing entire chunks of time, finding themselves miles from where they should be, with no recollection of how they traveled there. One famous story from the 1980s tells of a group who went hiking for a short walk. Hours later, rescuers found them wandering confused, far from the trail, with their clocks showing missing time and their memories blank. Even stranger, there are reports of people hearing voices, footsteps, and whispers deep inside the caves, even when no one is around. Some describe seeing shadows that move in ways no person could. Others claim to spot flickering lights, not flashlights, but glowing orbs or beams that appear for a moment and vanish instantly. And then there are the portals. Hikers have talked about seeing door-like shapes open in the forest, shimmering windows that disappear a moment later. In some rare cases, people claim they saw landscapes on the other side that didn't match the mountain at all. Skeptics dismiss these stories as hallucinations or exhaustion, but the sheer number of reports is impossible to ignore. The legends of Untersberg go even deeper. Local folklore says the mountain holds ancient chambers where great rulers sleep, waiting to awaken when the world needs them. The most famous story involves Emperor Charlemagne, who is said to be in a magical slumber inside the mountain, surrounded by his knights. His beard allegedly grows around a stone table, wrapping it in rings. When the beard circles the table completely, myth says the world will face its final battle, and the emperor will rise again. There are also tales of small human-like beings who live inside the caves, sometimes helpful, sometimes mischievous. Travelers claim these beings lead them astray or guide them depending on their intentions. Modern theorists suggest something even stranger. Some believe Untersberg sits on a powerful energy vortex,
a place where the Earth's magnetic fields twist in unusual ways. This could explain time anomalies, strange lights, and disorientation. Others think the mountain hides something artificial, ancient tunnels built by a forgotten civilization, or even a hidden base used by advanced beings. There are reports from World War II suggesting that Nazi scientists were obsessed with Untersberg, believing it was a gateway to other dimensions. After the war, Allied forces found maps, research notes, and geological studies hinting at something the Germans were searching for inside the mountain. They never found out what. Even today, Untersberg has incidents that defy explanation. Rescue teams sometimes find hikers who insist they were gone for minutes, but their phones show hours of missing time. Equipment malfunctions are frequent. Compasses spin, GPS devices fail, cameras glitch or shut off completely. And throughout all these experiences, one theme repeats. The mountain feels alive. People describe a sensation of being watched, not with malice, but with ancient intelligence, as if the mountain itself is aware of every step taken upon it. Whether Untersberg is a natural geological anomaly, a place where Earth's magnetic fields collide, or something far more mysterious, no one knows. But one thing is certain. It is not just a mountain. It is a doorway to history, to legend, and perhaps to realities we cannot yet understand.
The unsolved mystery of the Putney Bridge jogger. On a bright May morning in 2017, just as Londoners were starting their day, one of the strangest and most unsettling mysteries in modern city history unfolded on Putney Bridge. It was a weekday, early enough that the air still felt cold from the night before, and the walkway of the bridge was filled with joggers, commuters, and people simply heading to work. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing suggested that someone was seconds away from becoming the center of a story that still haunts investigators to this day. At around 7:40 a.m., a woman walked along the pedestrian path, slowly, calmly, minding her own business. From the opposite direction, a male jogger approached with steady pace, his posture relaxed, his movement quiet and controlled. And then, without warning, without hesitation, without even breaking rhythm, he suddenly lunged to his right, extended both arms, and violently shoved her into the road. It wasn't a stumble. It wasn't an accidental shoulder bump. It was a deliberate, forceful push. She fell backward, directly into the path of a fast-moving double-decker bus. For a split second, captured in crisp, horrifying CCTV footage, her head and shoulders hung inches above the pavement as the bus swerved. The driver reacted in a miracle-like instant, jerking the wheel just enough to avoid hitting her. Passengers screamed. Some jumped up, bracing for impact. But by pure luck, the woman survived. The bus screeched to a stop. Strangers rushed out to help her. She was terrified, shaken, but alive. And the jogger? He never stopped. He kept running, completely unfazed, disappearing into the flow of morning commuters. What made the incident even more unnerving was what happened next. 15 minutes later, the same jogger was seen again, this time on the opposite side of the bridge, moving at the same pace, as if nothing had happened. The woman, still trembling in shock, confronted him. She told him what he'd done. She tried to stop him. He looked at her and simply kept running. No reaction, no confusion, no apology, nothing. It was as if he had no memory of her at all. When the CCTV footage went public, it went viral almost instantly. Millions watched in disbelief as the man pushed a complete stranger into what should have been a fatal accident. The clarity of the video only fueled the outrage. People could see his face,
his build, his clothing, and yet no one recognized him. The police launched a massive investigation. They interviewed witnesses. They reviewed hundreds of hours of CCTV from surrounding streets. They arrested multiple people who resembled the jogger, but each time the suspects were ruled out. Officers said publicly that they followed every reasonable line of inquiry, but nothing led them closer to the identity of the man responsible. More than 50 persons of interest were examined. Every possible lead, no matter how small, was checked, and still, no match. As months passed, the case grew stranger. London is one of the most heavily surveilled cities in the world. People are caught on cameras walking into shops, crossing streets, entering stations, stepping onto buses. And yet somehow, a man who nearly caused the death of a pedestrian in broad daylight simply vanished. By 2018, with no solid evidence left to pursue, the investigation was officially closed. Not solved, just stopped. But closing a case doesn't erase it, especially not this one. Online communities exploded with theories. Some believed the jogger had serious psychological issues, someone capable of sudden, violent impulses. Others thought he may have been under the influence of drugs or suffering from a dissociative episode. And then there were darker possibilities, that he knew exactly what he was doing, that he sought out a victim, that he wanted to hurt someone, and that he understood how easy it is to disappear into a city of 9 million people. One theory stood out the most. What if he wasn't local at all? What if he was a tourist, or a temporary visitor, or someone just passing through the city for a few hours? Someone who ran across the bridge, committed an attack, returned 15 minutes later out of pure routine, and then left London forever. This would explain why no one recognized him. No co-workers, no neighbors, no acquaintances, no one who might see the CCTV footage and think, "I know him." It's chilling to imagine a man capable of such violence slipping through the cracks of a city watched by thousands of cameras. For the woman who almost died that morning, the psychological toll was immense. The randomness of it, the lack of motive, the lack of closure, continues to haunt her. The knowledge that the man is still out there, unpunished, unknown, walking freely, feels like a wound that has never fully closed. Today, the Putney Bridge jogger remains one of London's most disturbing unsolved mysteries. He has no confirmed identity, no explanation, no origin. Just a grainy frame on a CCTV screen, a stranger in running clothes, and a moment of violence that could have easily become murder. And maybe the most frightening part of it all is this. In a world where surveillance captures everything, how can someone still manage to disappear completely?
The Khamar-Daban incident. In the summer of 1993, deep in the wild, untouched mountains of Siberia, a group of 7 young hikers set out on what should have been a simple, scenic expedition. A trail they had trained for, a route they had prepared for, and a region they had already visited before. Their leader, 41-year-old Lyudmila Korovina, was an elite survival instructor. Her students admired her, they trusted her, and they believed they were in the safest possible hands. But nothing, not her experience, not their training, not their preparation, would save them from what happened next. The Khamar-Daban mountain range is beautiful, but it's deceptive. Weather changes in minutes. Thick fog appears out of nowhere. Winds roar through the valleys like living creatures. Locals say the mountains decide who goes home. On August 2nd, the group began their climb. They moved slowly through forests, crossed rivers, and eventually reached higher elevations where low clouds hugged the slopes and visibility dropped. Still, everyone was in good spirits. They sang, they joked. Nobody sensed danger. On August 4th, they set up camp on a high plateau near Mount Tritrans. It was a remote, exposed place,
But Korovina, their instructor, wasn't worried. She'd camped in worse. The students trusted her judgment completely. The next morning, the first sign of trouble appeared out of nowhere. It began with one of the youngest members of the group, 17-year-old Alexander Krivonyshenko, a strong, healthy boy who had shown zero problems during the climb. He suddenly collapsed, twitching violently. His eyes rolled back, he struggled to breathe. Blood trickled from his mouth. At first, they thought he was choking on food, but he wasn't. Something was happening inside his body. The group panicked. They had no radio, no way to call for help. The nearest town was days away. Moments later, another student collapsed with the same symptoms. Then another, then another. Within minutes, 5 people were convulsing on the ground, screaming, gasping for air, bleeding from their mouths and noses. No one understood what was happening. The only person still able to act was 18-year-old Valentina Utuchenko, the only survivor of this expedition, the only living witness. According to her testimony, Korovina, their leader, remained unbelievably calm. She tried to help the students breathe, tried to check their pulses, tried to pull them into recovery positions. She fought to keep control even while chaos swallowed the camp around her. But then even Korovina collapsed. She screamed in agony, vomited blood, then went silent. Within a short period, less than an hour, 6 people were dead. Valentina stood alone on the plateau, surrounded by bodies, violent wind, and freezing fog. She had no supplies, no functioning gear, and the only person who could navigate the terrain, their instructor, was gone. She ran. She didn't stop. She didn't look back. She sprinted barefoot down the mountains, slipping, falling, tearing her legs open on rocks and branches. Every sound behind her felt like death chasing her. Every gust of wind sounded like the mountains calling for her too. For 2 days, she wandered through the wild Siberian forests with no food, no tent, barely any clothing, and almost no sense of direction. Finally, she stumbled across a group of local hikers who carried her to safety.
Theories. What really happened? To this day, no explanation has fully satisfied investigators, but several theories try to make sense of the horror. Number 1. Hypothermia plus exhaustion. Some experts say the group was caught in a sudden cold storm and suffered from hypothermia. But hypothermia does not explain blood from the mouth, sudden violent seizures, all 6 collapsing in minutes. So this theory is unlikely. Number 2. Poisoning. Another theory suggests they consumed toxic mushrooms or plants, but the symptoms were far too fast and too extreme, and Korovina, an experienced instructor, would never let them eat unknown vegetation. Number 3. Carbon monoxide. Some investigators thought smoke from a malfunctioning stove poisoned them, but the group was outdoors. Wind conditions made CO poisoning essentially impossible. Number 4. Nerve agents or chemical exposure. Some believe they may have been exposed to a toxic military chemical blown by the wind from a nearby military testing site. Their symptoms, bleeding, convulsions, respiratory failure, align with nerve agent exposure. But no military activity was confirmed in the region at that time. Number 5. Infrasound, or sudden atmospheric pressure drop. A rare atmospheric phenomenon might have caused panic, disorientation, or physical reactions. But again, this does not explain the rapid internal bleeding. Number 6. Unknown natural phenomenon. This is the opinion of many Russian hikers. Khamar-Daban is a place where the mountains behave strangely. Locals believe the region produces rare, deadly weather pockets, isolated zones of toxic air caused by bizarre environmental conditions. It's never been proven, but nothing else fits. the mystery remains. Valentina survived, but the experience destroyed her health and haunted her for the rest of her life. She never returned to long-distance hiking. She rarely spoke about that day, and every time she did, she repeated one detail. It happened too fast, too suddenly. We didn't have a chance. The Khamar-Daban incident remains one of Russia's most disturbing and unexplained outdoor tragedies. No final cause has been agreed upon. No definitive answer has been found. 6 trained hikers died in minutes, struck down by something invisible, something powerful enough to cause violent convulsions, internal bleeding, and absolute panic. No poison was found. No weapon was discovered. No natural explanation fits the timeline. The survivor, Valentina, spent the rest of her life trying to outrun the memories of that day. And every time she spoke about it, she repeated the same chilling detail. It happened too fast, too suddenly. We didn't have time to understand. Maybe it was a toxic cloud carried by the wind. Maybe it was a military experiment gone wrong. Or maybe, as locals insist, the mountains themselves decided who could leave. What happened on that plateau still haunts investigators, hikers, and anyone who dares step into the Khamar-Daban range. If you want to hear more real mysteries like this, more stories that defy explanation, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications, because some mysteries refuse to stay buried.